If it's Thursday, it's got to be a great conversation, one conversation at a time. I'm Rick Senninger. If we haven't met before, I'm the founder of Tip Hypnosis and developer of the PIT method, practicing intelligent, intuitive, and intellectual thinking. PIT 3, as we like to call it. If this is your first time joining us, this is the fifth of 12 different lessons, tapings, conversations, Q&As that we're having on change. Why on change? Because change is the most constant thing that we have in this life. Things are constantly changing. And with change, a lot of times there can be, some conflicts. There can be some concerns. It's one of the things that why it's a constant in our life, it can bring us so much joy. It can also be something that can cause us a lot of anxiety and fatigue. My background is I'm a certified grief counselor. I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist. And for most of my life, I have been working with people that have gone through major life transitions and that they're, making those adjustments. For most people, when it comes to adjustments and changes, they're able to handle them pretty well on their own. A lot of times with support, family, things like that, but not for everybody. And sometimes the changes can be so dramatic and be so impactful in one single moment. Someone's life can change, and go in an entirely different direction. The reason, the purpose for somebody like myself is a professional to provide assistance or support when there's a large dynamic or a very, very big change in someone's life, which by the way, doesn't always have to be bad. Sometimes those changes can be very, very good, but they do require, a real transition. So for people like myself, what we're doing is we're helping you get through those transitions relatively quickly, usually like, 6, 8 weeks, few handful of sessions. We're able to help you get through those transitions so you can have the life that you really want to have when you get to the other side. That's really what it comes down to. Because for a lot of people, or for many people, thinking it's not a lot of people, for many people, what will end up happening is that those transitions will cause them to be stuck. And then they are forever adversely impacted, or they don't have an opportunity to have the full life that they really want to have. And let's be honest about it, transitions will occur to each and every one of us. And that's the way it works. So through this series, we talk about change and transitions in many, many different capacities. The very first one we did was on anxiety, fight and flight. When your anxiety goes up, when, then, your fight flight mechanism is really what it's all about. Feeling safe, feeling protected. When you don't feel safe or you're in uncharted waters, your anxiety goes up and your fight or flight mechanism is kicked into place. Why is change difficult? Because we have something that we have built into our system called the RAS system. And that RAS system actually wants us to kind of stay in our groove, stay to what we're familiar with. And that's what we discussed there and how that kind of works. There's also the pain of change. Again, this is very interpretive. The pain of change can be from a lot of different directions. Change, when I thank goodness my daughters grew up, because otherwise, I really want to keep changing diapers. I was very, very happy about that transition, that change, that when they got to a place where no longer needed to change diapers, I could get rid of the diaper bag and so on. I was very, very proud of them when they graduated from high school. I was very, very proud of them graduating from college or at their weddings and their own families and things like that they've developed. These are all changes that have gone on in their lives, and that's not necessarily bad at all. But at times, was it awkward and a little painful? Sure, of course, because you're stepping out and you're doing some things. Then we talked about why is it some people, particularly intelligent people, have a difficult time with change. That was last week. That was number 4. And what we're talking about there is that for a lot of people that are highly intelligent and at the same time in leadership roles, they are fixers. They want to fix everything. They've taken on that role. They've taken the responsibility. Now, a lot of times this can be doctors. This can be my wonderful, wonderful medical professionals, my first responders. They are so acclimated to stepping in and wanting to be the fixers. And they're intelligent. They can do many, many things with their mind all at one time, especially the ones that have ADHD. Those are my superheroes, my super first responders. And when they have that, those experiences, uh, you know, it's it's hard for them when they can't fix something. So I think one of the examples we used last week was what it must be like for, and I don't know this to be the case, I totally made this up, but I was making an example. Actually, I think I got it from the television series House. Okay. But they also feel like their whole purpose, their identity as a physician, as an oncologist, of all things, that they cannot actually help their own family member. So for them, that's a whole nother type of thing. So if you have someone in your home who maybe kind of shuts down because they're really intelligent and they're actually kind of being quiet when a big change or a dramatic impact is occurred in the house, you've got to give them a little bit of space, a little bit of grace. But at the same time, you love on them like nobody's business because those people really, really, really do need your help. Well, we all do when we're facing change. So on that note, today we're talking about one of my favorite elements of talking about change. And the one that's probably talked about more in the media right now, and people are asking this question all the time, is was the human mind ever even designed for modern life, especially with AI coming on and everybody's talking about it? By the way, if you would like to ask some questions during this presentation, I'm more than happy to listen to take them. It is a Q&A. I'd love for you to participate. Here's what you're going to do is you're actually going to text me on my on my business cell phone, on the business cell phone. Text me right here. That phone number is 407-490-5022. It's also, if you go to tiphypnosis.com, it's written right in the top corner because that's the business line, and you can turn around and ask any questions that you would like to at all, and we're more than happy to do just that. And so everything is going, according to my good friend Deanna, she said everything's going perfect. So uh, I want to start off again by saying to you that we are going to be talking about whether or not we're ready for all the things that are going on. So in doing so, I want you just to start off with a basic concept here. I want to suggest something that may maybe completely change how you see even yourself. And that is you're not overwhelmed. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not overwhelmed because you're weak. Maybe you're overwhelmed because your brain was designed for a world that no longer exists. I want you to think about that for a minute. Our minds evolved literally over hundreds of thousands of years. And modern society has changed dramatically, very significantly, just like in the last 30 years. So there's an incongruency right there. We've had usually a very, very long time to modify how we think and look at the world. But today, with today's technology, everything moves so fast. How you respond to that is really kind of your last resort. So our brain was actually designed for survival. Your brain is not designed to necessarily make you happy, although that can certainly happen. It was designed to keep you alive. It was asked to basically, am I safe? What deserves my attention? And what should I do next? So, thousands of years ago, obviously that was pretty easy to answer. And throughout most of human history, people lived in relatively stable environments. I mean, same families, same communities, same occupations. They didn't travel a whole bunch. There's getting on a plane when I was growing up was going on a big trip. But we'd be back in 8 or 10 days, and we'd be spending the other, 350 days a year in our own community. going, around our own people, if you would, involving in our same traditions, our same belief systems. Life was, as they say, simpler then. But the world has changed, and the world changed, quite frankly, back then, much more slowly. Now, our brain naturally wants to conserve energy. So let me just say that type of world and our brains kind of it meshed together because there were things like familiar routines, predictable environments, recognizable faces. The communities were smaller, everybody interfaced, no one really moved, and repeated behaviors. So this all adds up to us be having familiarity, of course, equals safety, knowledge. You're not pushing the limits all the time on every little thing. Uh, so it wasn't necessarily better, and I don't want to romanticize it, but from our brain standpoint, our nervous system standpoint, from a neuroscience standpoint, we're hitting all the right buttons. Everything is feeling better. Today, almost nothing stays familiar for any period of time. Your brain is being asked to process things at such a fast rate, such a huge rate. I want you to think about that for a minute. The rate that you're being asked to process things and process changes. Your prefrontal cortex is a limited resource. And that's the part of your brain, by the way, that's responsible for judgment, planning, um, decision making, reasoning. It has limited capacity. When constantly interrupted, decision quality actually, now you get ready for this? Decision quality actually decreases. Mental fatigue increases. Patience decreases. Emotional reactions increase. Behavioral psychology calls this decision fatigue. The more decisions we make, the poorer our decisions become. We're overloaded, like in a huge way, a lot of times. So I'm going to ask you, have you ever noticed, like by the evening, that even deciding something as simple as what you want to eat, or do you want to watch TV or go to bed early? I mean, that is becomes just exhausting. I know I've come home and come through the door before and said to the family, I'm going, I don't care. I love you. I don't care. I mean, I'm saying this before anybody even says anything to me. Nobody asked me anything else. I've made all the decisions I'm going to make for today. That is not laziness, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. That is biology. Uh, what we long for are familiar things. We need to be able to relax our minds a little bit. We need to have familiarity. We need for the keys to always be put in the same place. We need for the remote control to always be in the same place. We need the furniture to be in the same place. So your chair is still there and the remote's right next to it, right? Um, when people complain, when you hear people complain, a lot of times it's their older folks, right? They do is they complain. I don't know anything about being an older folk, but I've met some, right? Um, when people will say things like, I don't want a Kindle or I want a book. I don't want that damn app. I want a paper map. I don't want to hear music streaming. I want vinyl. And I want a stylus and I want to lift it up and put it on there. It's about the certainty that those things bring. Now, I know this absolutely sounds ridiculous, but there's times I still like to hold a book or I like to grab my journal or I want to grab a pen and paper and write things out, yeah, then I'll put my notes and so on maybe into Grammarly to help me, sort them out a little bit, and then maybe polish them up with Chat GPT or something, and then go back and make a couple final edits and so on. It's not that I hate technology. It's just that paper and pencil feels good. And for some people, that might be also like just reading a book or holding a book. It feels good. And that's not ridiculous. The brain is appreciating something tangible, something you're used to, something that feels like home. It's also slower. I know for you folks that are extremely efficient on every little thing you do, not that I have any family members that are like that, but, or any friends for that matter, they want to do everything very, very efficiently and as quickly as possible and da, da, da. But sometimes doing it slower is actually enjoyable. You actually get to smell the flowers along the way. And it's also a chance to do something familiar. Um, Humans do, we will hold on to things because these become anchors. This is another thing that we do to keep familiarity and slow ourselves down a little bit. Keeping grandma's fill in the blank. I don't know, maybe it was a cookbook, maybe it was a vase, maybe it was a roasting pan that's used. These objects clearly do not have any emotional attachments. They're inanimate objects that couldn't possibly have emotions. They do have energy, though, and they represent security and they represent comfort and identity. They validate relationships. So when technology replaces things so easily with absolutely no emotion at all, forget the fact that your dad or your brother or somebody taught you how to read a map. And that paper map has a feeling to it, has an emotional response to it. You don't need maps anymore. What are you, silly, you old fool? What are you using paper maps for? Um, it's because of the attachment to it. And it's the attachment that actually feels right. So when technology replaces these things, we're basically told that the way we feel about this is wrong. But it's really not. So again, space and grace, when people are demonstrating that they don't want to change that quickly, it's not because they're not capable, it's because they still have attachments to certain things. Grandparents are great at this. They experienced, major technology revolution like every decade, right? They would turn around and maybe there would be some type of, technological advance. I remember growing up, I was very young. I'm not this old, but I was very young, and television was black and white, and then eventually it became color, and then eventually we got a movie box. That's what it was called, originally. Um, and so on. But there was like years between those things happening. Now everything moves in months. As a matter of fact, generations by many social behavioralists are not using the traditional or the what had been the method of generations from children to grandchildren to great grandchildren, calling those generations. They're actually using technology. And I'm not sure, I mean, we talk about in everyday speak, but I don't think people really understand. Like when you say boomers and Gen X and millenniums and so on and so on, that there was not, an actual generation that went by. It was technology. And technology is now being used to determine um, generations, and identifying populations by generations is by technology. So now today we have things like artificial intelligence, medical breakthroughs, economic shifts, career changes, political divisions, relationship changes. We're getting information coming in just right and left. Healthcare is changing, language is changing. apps for everything. The technology is coming at us so fast and furious. The point is that growth without stability, write this one down. Growth without stability creates anxiety. Growth without stability creates anxiety. You don't even have a chance to go, why does it work that way? Now you're just told because it does, that's good enough. Shut up and use the app. I'm not saying it's necessarily bad. I'm not anti-apps. I use them all the time. What I am saying, though, is that the instability of the fact that what worked fine a week ago is now obsolete. That's, as we know from our previous discussions, that when you change things up that quickly, it creates instability, and that does increase your anxiety. So here's the answer. We're not going to be able to slow down the world. They're going to keep moving. What people are needing to do is they aren't not to look at when someone's pushing back a little bit, they're trying to resist the change. Let's reposition this. They're trying to catch up. They're trying to understand and they're trying to become comfortable with the change. They're not saying they won't change, they will change. They will accommodate. Give it a beat, okay? Give it a beat and allow people to make their transitions. Does it really matter if they figure out the app in 15 minutes or if they take 10 days? It's not a big deal. It's not a race. Allow people the ability to be able to make these changes as they need to. So this again is, and I'm going to sound like I'm doing a little plug here, and maybe I am, I don't know. I'll leave that to you to decide. This is where the philosophy that and the method that I developed that I refer to as the PIT method, practicing intuitive, intellectual, and inspired thinking. This recognizes that we see things from all three lenses all the time. Some things are more predominant at that moment than other things. Okay, let me be specific about that. Sometimes I approach things very, very logically, very left brain. Sometimes I'm motivated. I see a potential outcome on something, and so I then go to my intellectual side to go, do you think that's really going to work the way I want it to? Because I'm really inspired to do something. And then I go to the other side of myself and I go, does it feel right? If chances are I'm inspired by it, it may also feel right, but there's also a certain amount of caution that should be used. And so practicing intuitive, intellectual, and inspired thinking that when life is speeding up, you're actually taking a beat and slowing down and going, wait a minute, just because I can doesn't mean I should. A very important question to ask yourself all the time. Just because I can, does that mean you should? Ask yourself, like, what is actually true? What am I assuming? Does it really matter? Who's going to benefit by what I decide to do or not do? Hey, look, if I'm taking I know a road trip by myself in the car and I don't have an appointment to be somewhere at a certain time, if I want to pull out a paper map, I'm not sure I could still find one, but assuming because I know you won't find them at the convenience stores anymore, but if I want to get a paper map and actually do it with a paper map, who's that bothering? It's okay. You can do what you would like to do and what serves you best. Don't worry about serving serving Apple and Google. They're going to be fine without you. But what serves you best and what makes you feel comfortable and what brings pleasure to you and at the same time a positive emotional experience. When we are intentionally paused before reacting, we engage, we re-engage, well, when we intentionally pause before reacting, we actually re-engage the prefrontal cortex that oftentimes starts shutting down because of all the overload that's coming in. So therefore, we can allow then for automatic emotional responses to take place. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that possibly you may take a look at things a little bit different by the time we got done with this subject. And that is that it's not a matter that you can't catch up, it's a matter of making choices and prioritizing what's really good for you. The problem isn't that you're falling behind. The situation is this: you've got to give yourself permission to slow down, to think, to reflect, and to question, to choose intentionally what serves you best. And not every message deserves your attention. Not everything deserves your emotional energy. Not everything requires your participation. Um, because ultimately, a better understanding of how you're feeling, the way you're looking at things, and the dynamics around you, by taking those moments and allowing yourself to engage, will actually lead to better decisions. You're going to have better relationships with people because you're not going to feel overrun. You're actually going to take the time to have a relationship and to communicate with whomever it is, your partner, your friends, your family, whatever. Um, you're going to reduce your stress, your anxiety, because you're going to feel more in control, not out of control. Remember the whole thing with fight and flight and anxiety, right? Okay. And change, feeling painful. All right, you get overloaded. Pain that change is not going to be a welcome change. It could be had you done a little bit slower and actually gone through the process. But instead, if you got involved with the having to catch up, then not going to give you a really great feeling towards whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And less stress creates just that greater peace, which will allow you to have the best life that you can have. That's what we're here for, is for you to understand yourself and to be able to actually enjoy your life. Now, since I've been yakking for about 17 minutes, I am going to address some of these questions. So let's see what we've got here on the question side of things. Okay. Uh, okay. Perfect. 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 Okay. Um, Here's one of the questions that a friend of mine asked me. I think we already hit it. It says, is it simply age as we mature, we accumulate routines and mental models that have served us for so well for decades that anything that those patterns is something we don't ever want to make changes? And the answer is no. Look, just because you get over 50 or 55 or 60 doesn't mean that you don't want to make changes and stay involved. I mean, that's part of life. You want to engage. But what it does mean is that you're going to make an allowance for the fact that there's a lot. Someone who's more mature has a lot more information in their mind, has a lot more memories already there. Therefore, they're probably going to be a little bit more discerning about what they really see as being important to change to. And they will based upon what's going to serve them best, not what everybody else. It's not that you're getting old and you can't do it. It's just that you may or may not see the necessity to do it, or it may not be comfortable for you to do it. So give it a little bit of time and let them see the advantages. Remember, they have to be inspired within themselves to make a change. You can't make somebody change something. Goodness knows. If that were the case, I'd be a genius. I could get everybody to change their perfect life immediately, right? Um, somebody was saying, how do I know whether I'm resisting change or wisely questioning it? Okay. The easy answer to that is if you're avoiding it because it's unfamiliar or because it legitimately conflicts with your values and goals. So if I'm avoiding it because I just don't like to try anything new or I just don't want to try something, okay, you're just avoiding it. Okay. You're limiting yourself. If it actually isn't going to serve you to learn it at all, okay, fine. Then, you know, it's not going to serve you. The point is, thoughtful skepticism is healthy. And again, go back to the PIT method, practicing intelligent, intuitive, and intellectual thinking. So you're going to be thinking intellectually now. Is this really going to, does this really matter? And is it really going to serve me? Will it matter 5 years from now? And those types of questions are important. And also our tip method. This is, by the way, by practicing this type of thinking, intuitive, inspirational thinking, then you are going to end up transforming your individual performance because your thoughts are what creates your actions, and your actions are what creates your life. Okay. So practicing intelligent, intuitive, intellectual, inspire easier for the transformations in your individual performance, your individual life. That is the purpose of it. And if you'd like to know more about this or anything else, or you have any questions, I welcome you to call. You can give me a call anytime. Like his office hours are posted on the website. Go to tiphypnosis.com, TIP hypnosis.com. I'm more than happy to meet with folks. I do it absolutely at no charge. I do 30 minutes. I talk to them. I listen to their stories. I love listening to people's experiences, their lives, and so on. And if there's something I can help you with, and you may not need any help, I may say, look, you're fine. I've done that on more than one occasion. You're fine. You're working through this on your own. You don't need to pay anybody to help you with this. You're well on your way. But if I'm not a good fit, then I'm actually going to refer you, and I will get them on the phone with you right then and there if you want me to do a three-way call. I've done that many times to get you to the right person that can actually help you with whatever it is you're looking to do. So anyway, that is it. My name is Rick Senninger. It's been a great Thursday evening, and I thank you so much for taking the time to join me. If you didn't see it live, don't worry about it. It's going to be on the YouTube channel on Tip TV. You can go ahead and uh, see it anytime. Share it with other folks. Like us, subscribe to us, so on, and I'll see you again next Thursday night. In the meantime, everybody, please, please, please take care of yourselves and stay